to invite Kanyon here today so that we can have a listening session about this new idea that's being proposed. And I'm glad that you could make it. And I want to bring Kanyon up. And I'm so glad that you're here, Kanyon, and you made the trip. And I'm glad that you traveled safely. And I'm also embarrassed a little bit to say that we have to leave right away. It's his fault. No, he just got called into work, and so I wanted to make sure though that I stayed in long enough to invite you. We've got some other Nisenan folks in the room, and it's a pleasure to have you here in our territory.
Mishmitugis, Counterpart Kanyon, Coyote owner, and I am honored to visit here into the space of Nishan territory. Mishinan, thank you. Apologies. My brain is thinking my languages, and I'm like, Mishmitugis, Mishinan. I'm honored to visit Mishinan territory, and I want to offer a little sprout of tobacco that our community, John and White Rabbit, cultivated and sowed. And this little seedling is the start of something beautiful. And it might have a little trouble because it wanted to leak out earlier today. So apologies if I may have shocked it. However, I think that could be an actual sign of like, we are going to stumble. We might even have incidences of learning opportunities. So I want to offer this tobacco as an offering gift to this territory. And I want to say thank you for allowing me to visit. And also, coming from a matrilineal society, my mother and my grandmother believe that when song, ceremony, and dancing stops, so does the earth. I too believe that, so I would like to offer a grandmother song.
Thank you.
So this is a grandmother song that is Kanyon's grandmother song because I can only sing a traditional Chumash grandmother song with a mentor, and this song came to me differently than it was taught. And this song is meant to be shared with our intertribal community, our international community, publicly, and it is okay to be recorded. This is a grandmother song to honor our grandmothers, their grandmothers, and all Mother Earth. For without them and without her, we would not be here. We share this time and space together for a reason, so it's with the humility and gratitude and present-mindedness that I offer this song to this space here today. This is Kanyon's grandmother song. Moi moi o kawana, moi moi o ka, moi moi no, moi moi o ko, moi moi o ne, ayo pole, moi moi hey ayo pole, moi moi o kawana. Conversation of what it means to be here. Quick little conversation before you run away.
Yes, please.
I do want to point out that I recognize that we're starting conversations around this topic. And I understand that you as a community member are taking a risk. And I'm kind of curious of what's part of your experience has been.
Also, my cousin is here too, my cousin Les. I said other Nisenan didn't speak this way, but I want to also acknowledge the cousins that are here. And because, Nevada City Rancheria we're just starting this campaign for the restoration of our federal recognition. We unfortunately lost our federal court case, because of the 6-year statute of limitations. So our only recourse now is legislative. because the regular federal process is barred to terminated tribes. So, I mean, that might be news to people that there still are California terminated tribes out there. So as we're doing this, of course, it's extremely political, and we're just learning about that. There are inner politics with our neighboring tribes, there are inner politics with California itself, and then of course with the feds. So when I was talking about this, and wanting to invite you to just listen and come and be part of what's happening, there's a lot of fear around, and you're going to be being in that room talking about like taking California out of the equation, and how do you think that's going to make the feds feel, or who's that going to make enemies of? How's that going to position us, especially in this moment that we're in right now? And at the same time, you've got to educate yourself, and you need to listen and hear. I guess that is part of politics, is kind of knowing what's going on all over the place, whether it's in your conversation or somebody else's conversation, good politics, eavesdropping on people maybe. But yeah, it's very much of a concern, very real. I do not want to harm, it'd be completely ridiculous for me for all the work we're doing, because we have no capacity, as terminated tribes in California, to do all this work and these limited ability and capability to somehow accidentally harm us by merely sitting in a room to listen. But that's actually, especially the elder people, said to me, are you sure that's a good idea? And that's their reality. And so that's probably going to come up from people all over the place. But I do truly believe that it's important to hear what's going on. We don't have to make any decisions. We don't have to throw in. But yeah, so that's very, very real. It was very real in my hesitancy and getting my permissions. I had to ask a lot of people. And it's really important to listen to them, hear their fears, and then best navigate moving forward. So we're here.
And I'm humbled and I'm appreciative, because the same thing occurred on my curiosity and also my public statement of saying this needs to be talked about. Like, I was also hesitant in endorsing, I love the dream scenario, because I thoroughly believe through teaching and acknowledging Indigenous protocol and recognizing Indigenous wisdoms and Indigenous pedagogies, as well as how we can honor all of our ancestors, as well as the land that we are on in today's post-colonial settler society, that we can understand and yield amazing insights towards sustainable futures by recognizing the histories and the ways of community of Indigenous nations. And that's anywhere we go, because the locals know what's up.
Anywhere and everywhere you go in any topic.
Exactly.
From building a freeway and a thing over here to the endangered animals, to the water, to every topic. We should be
not just social sciences and history. Yep.
Thanksgiving.
Gosh, Thanksgiving. I call October, November Rent Your Token Native Month. And it's painful, because I both want to participate and educate. However, I also am in a small state of trauma, because everyone says, can we, you need to speak, you need to speak. I'm saying, you're putting me on the spot. So I
hear you on that one.
I want to express a deep appreciation, because there is these assumptions and potential stigma and presumptions around this. And all this is we need to talk about these conversations that aren't always brought up, and these topics, as well as a way that we can come together with our communities to speak out on what all of these injustices that have been done to the land, to our communities, and to the next generations. We as Indigenous peoples are stewards of these lands, and we need to do what we can, when we can, however we can, for as long as we can, to protect the biodiversity, to respect the integrity of honoring our ancestors and our elders, as well as being responsible stewards and caretakers of these lands, to ensure that the future generations have a beautiful space that they can be proud to look back and say, those are my ancestors. And so I want to express deep gratitude, and I do understand. I just wanted to be sure that you shared as much as you could before departing.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we do have your community here too, which I'm very grateful for. And
so great. It's been a new conversation for us up in Gold Country, because the conversations have never been had before. I think people assume that the natives are all gone, know, I've read that in books actually, that the Nisenan from here are extinct, and, you know.
The
it's
last
kind of-
one on track.
Yeah, it's always the last one, right, in some article somewhere. But, you know, the community seems ready to start learning some of the protocol, and people have been expressing protocol. Some people in this room especially are just, you know, giving you the opportunity to say, no, thank you for thinking of us, or we just can't, or whatever it is, but being asked and included is really where it all starts, right?
Thank you. So very happy.
So you're okay if I jet out of here now?
Yeah.
So
And so any of the family members, I warmly welcome you to also speak and bring up topics. I know right now we're going to shift into a more inclusive conversation, as well as possibly having Marcus or John or any representatives who are part of the initiatory efforts, because I also am not attempting to be the only spokesperson of or for. However, Kanyon Consulting, my sovereign consultation firm, is focused on bridging the gap between Indigenous and contemporary value systems, and of which my participation in this is also to encourage cultural competency in navigating this process. Because many times Western academia and Western settler colonialism has an entitled approach of saying, that's the agenda, we're going to get there no matter what. And with Indigenous communities, we're like, that'd be nice to get over there. However, we still need to ask the elders, we still need to engage the community, we still need to consider the environment, we still need to do all these things, and we can't promise that end result until we start doing the process together. And so it's my attempt to voice that in this process. So I recognize that my face is the in-between. However, I also am considerate of covering and ensuring that my presence in this is to say we need to be heard, we need to be included, we need this opportunity to listen and understand, and our communities will come to ideally have an opportunity to come together to start setting the standards of what should shift and change and how we can go about it if that is to be desired or requested or.
absolutely, because if you steamroll forward too fast, it's my experience and assumption is that everybody just goes back to what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, and they just, why participate in something like that yet again?
Exactly.
And it's just like, no, they won't. So it's good to be slow and thoughtful.
Yes. Slow, thoughtful, intentional, and recognize these things as we come up to them. Because this could possibly even change in an amazing direction, unknown, because of the people included, the voices and perspectives, and maybe someone asks that interesting question and people start to come together and
Smash it and morph it into something else.
right? And amazing things happen. So
All right, Kanyon.
we're up.
All right, thank you.
Awesome. Safe travels. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next card. Hi, everybody. Choo-choo. Sorry. So, thank you so very much. Shifting gears, I believe we have an amazing room full of community members and many people who may be having a chance to witness what is documented and archived here. This documentation, I do know, is going to be shared with our community members, and respect and protocols has been taken in considerations to our intellectual property rights. So before any presumptions of posting immediately, considerations of checking in, are you okay with how this is presented? Are you okay with how your image and your voice is being shared? So always be full of those considerations. So I believe at our tables we have index cards, and especially for our Indigenous community members as well as those who are impacted by a decision like this. And then sheets on tables for more discussions, maybe. And so I want to also acknowledge the Early Bird Farms who donated the freshly ground corn flour for this gathering, which is a beautiful way that we connect with community. For those who recognize and hear stories of all of this work that we're doing, and when we all have the means to come together, we can offer what we can. So similarly in my territory, if someone can't contribute to the Shumei land tax financially, they might be able to offer plants in their gardens. They may offer a space similar to this. Different ways people can stand in solidarity and be allies. And so it's always important coming together in a good way, being of resource to our abilities, to respect our boundaries, and to that direction of building and bridging communities. And so make sure you grab a brochure for this space, because it's amazing that we are being hosted. someone hand me a brochure? I totally just blanked on it. Oh my gosh, I feel so terrible. Haha! So we are the Banner Community Guild. I'm so very grateful for the Banner Community Guild because I have been wandering around this space and a beautiful tree frog just was hopping on my medicine bag, which is here in the middle of this building. I know he came in with some plants and in the vase, hanging out with the water. However, tree frogs, I was raised with them, so I'm sitting here like, oh, little visitor. And this morning a hummingbird visited me and visited my partner of Kanyon Consulting, just came right up, looked at, hung around, and flew off. I'm sitting here like, okay, we're getting these check-ins. All right, these things are good. So connecting community, bridging these conversations, bridging our communities, and just coming together. Because just these conversations need to happen. Like, I don't know what can come of this. It would be nice to have Indigenous communities be in charge to ensure that the land is stewarded, respected, and maintained in an integral fashion. And that also does mean that some of our communities need help, capacity building, all of these things. But right now, it's not going right. Right now, it's heartbreak everywhere I go. It's disregard to the earth, it's entitlement, it's exploitation, it's extraction. Post-colonial native psychology is running rampant in our own communities. The psyche of the oppressed is taking on the characteristics of the oppressor. So our own communities are fighting our own communities. And I am not a person who says we need to go back perfectly, because if I say we go back, that means go back to a place of our supposed origin. However, I recognize the layers of history in these spaces. I recognize 1, 2, 3, 5 generation community families who call this space home. It's also important to recognize those histories and the deeper narrative that Indigenous peoples have always been here and stewarding these lands and have the insight on how to caretake these spaces. And just how do we become better community members? To start, to refresh, to engage and go forward in a good way. Because we do need to heal from the pain and the traumas and the scars of the past. We need to recognize them and hear and validate and witness, and then take steps to go forward. So this is just the starting process, a listening opportunity. And so I either invite you to ask questions. I'm not going to be a person who's going to be able to answer them, but I do know some of us have amazing minds. So we also have a bunch of questions around in the other room. And in that, those questions have been questions that have been posed to Return California earlier on. And if you have a second iteration of, or you are in alignment with, or you have a possible response or answer, feel free to write on these papers out there, as well as if you see the stickers there and you're wanting to second or even third something, if someone writes something, you're like, oh my gosh, that right there, put an extra sticker there so we know more people are also curious or wanting to know or supporting that response. And so I wouldn't mind inviting either John or Marcus to also voice part of that narrative of what it meant to gather or come together and encourage these conversations to be started to get a sense, because I also am present here voicing the need for these conversations to be had, as well as I'm also learning about this process, because I can't speak thoroughly to everything involved with it. So I wouldn't mind a strong introduction. So if either of you